Well, hey everyone. Happy Thursday. Welcome to So What, the Marketing Analytics and Insights live show. I am joined by Chris and John. Howdy, fellas.
Hello. We missed it. There you go.
Oh, so close. As a side note, Chris, I was thinking about the title of the show. So, we call it So What? And I think it's the Marketing Analytics and Insights Live part that we can absolutely change. I remember when we started the show, you wanted the acronym and it was like, oh, MAIL, Marketing Analytics Insights Live. I was like, well, that's dumb. We're never going to call it that. So, as things evolve and as, marketing steps more and more into the agentic AI world, which is what we're talking about today, just sort of like a side note is like, oh, we could probably do something a little more with the name, keeping the so what. As we're talking about marketing strategy review with agentic AI, I think perhaps, one of my takeaways offline will be to use what I learned in today's episode to figure out what I can do with some of the branding of some of our outdated stuff without sort of making it feel like a 180 to our users. So with that preamble, Chris, where would you like to start today?
So this is part 2 of last week's episode. Last week we talked about how do we prompt agentic AI, and you can go see that on our YouTube channel for if you missed last week. And we talked about this also on the Trust Insights podcast, In-Ear Insights, which you can find at trustinsights.ai/TI podcast. And so Agentic, for those who missed last week's episode, is really about being good at delegation and good at project management. If you are good at those two things, you're going to be great at using agentic AI. If you're not good at those things, this is a great time to get started.
It is though. And, one of the things we really highlighted on last week's episode was if you're not sure how to get started, then we recommend, unsurprisingly, using the Trust Insights 5P framework, which you can get the downloadable PDF at trustinsights.ai/5P framework. The 5 Ps are purpose, people, process, platform, performance. Purpose, what is the question you're trying to answer? What is the problem you're trying to solve? People, who's involved internally and externally. Process, how are you doing this thing? Think about it like your standard operating procedure. Platform, what tools are you using? Not just, where is this going to live, but what systems do you have to interact with? And performance, did you answer the question? Did you solve the problem?
Exactly. So when we think about using agentic AI for marketing strategy, we have to think about what does the project plan look like? So what are the things that you would want to do this? And so we said this week we would work on the Marketing Over Coffee podcast, which you can listen to at marketingovercoffee.com, that John and I have been doing for 19 years. 19 years.
We are old.
It is older than one of my children. And it is just under the age of my oldest child. So it's been around for a really long time. And we'd want to know a few different things, right? We'd want to say, okay, we want the podcast to succeed. We want more listeners. We want more sponsors. We want sponsors to up-level what they're willing to invest in the show. But to do that, we kind of need to know, what's the current situation look like? What does the landscape look like? How has the world of podcasting changed? We'd want to know about the show itself. We want to know who our ideal customers were, both on the listener side and on the sponsor side. And from those things, we could do something like a gap analysis to say, yeah, this is generally what we'd want to do. So that's how, Katie, is there anything that you would like add or take away from that general approach for getting to know a company and a business besides the ICP, the competitive landscape about the company, et cetera?
No, I mean, I think that's a really solid start. And, we always talk about the best way to kick off any of these projects is to get organized with your foundational information. And so, like you said, it's the about, it's the competitive landscape, it's the customers. I think that's a really solid place to begin. But with the caveat, it's just the beginning.
Right, exactly. And because this is agentic, we want to have the pieces in place first before because you just don't want to go, hey, Claude Cowork, go build me a marketing strategy, right? That's the 2026 equivalent of write me a blog post about B2B marketing, right? You're just going to get a pile of slop. Right. So you have to think through what are the pieces that we would need. Now, the good news is agentic software can extract some of them, but you do have to kind of check out the extractions. So let's walk through what these pieces would be that you'd want to have in place to pull this off. And then we can actually do some of it. And I say some of it because some of the pieces, if we were to do them on the air, this would be a 4-hour live stream. And 3.5 hours would be just us sitting around waiting to do stuff. So the first thing you'll need an agentic framework. The one that we've been recommending for folks who are non-technical is Claude Cowork. If you are in the OpenAI ecosystem, you would use OpenAI Codex, the desktop application. If you are in the Gemini ecosystem, you would use Google Anti-Gravity. And if you're in the Microsoft Copilot system, there isn't something equivalent yet. However, I imagine that at some point there will be. So Claude Cowork would be our tool. Now, to do this, we would need to have 3 key components: something that can build an ICP from external data sources, something that can build a company profile from external data sources, and something that can do gap analysis. So our first step is to build those skills. And this is kind of where Agentic really leans heavily on the skills that you built from 2023 to 2025. Good prompting, good frameworks, etc. So one of the frameworks that we use all the time is the Trust Insights Casino framework, which stands for context, action, scope, intent, narrator, and outcome. It's a 6-part framework. You can find it at trustinsights.ai/casino. And if you build out those prompts, you can then turn them into skills. And they can, as we saw last week, and Katie, you just did this yesterday, you can turn that into plugins.
Yep. Full disclosure, for me, it was more of an experiment. So I had spent quite a while working in Claude Desktop, working on a project that involved our standard Trust Insights PowerPoint deck. And, I'm the first one to say that is my least favorite activity, is building PowerPoints. And the output, I thought, was really good for at least a version 1, something to work from. So after I finished, I basically did the same thing you do in a chat in OpenAI, Gemini, Claude. And basically it's like, take the contents of this conversation, and previously, if you're working in the web version, it would be turn it into system instructions or turn it into a knowledge base. And I was like, hey, let me take a shot and take the contents of this conversation and turn it into a skill that I can reuse, so I don't have to keep prompting you on how I want a presentation deck built. And it was like, okay. And it did. And it basically, I saw it going through, if you've seen, we've done previous episodes that are a deep dive on Claude Desktop, which you can find on our So What playlist on YouTube. It goes through its own steps. It comes up with its own to-do list, and it finds its own resources on, I have a skill builder skill, and I'm going to bring that in and build the skill. And it was like, okay, here's your skill. It's like, great. Can we take it a step further and make it a plugin so that I can then share it with the rest of the team? It was like, sure, let me go find my plugin builder skill. And it did that. It took all of the information and it built the necessary files I needed for the plugin in a way that I could download the files, stick them in Drive, and Chris could then download them for his own Claude Desktop instance, upload them to the plugins, and now he can build the same decks that I'm building, which all sounds convoluted, but it was really straightforward.
And not only really straightforward, I actually used it this morning for our upcoming GEO 101 for marketers, which will be available tomorrow in the Trust Insights Academy for $99. And it was great. It worked perfectly. It came up with a really terrific framework for me. I put the slides that I wanted to keep the certain way in, and I was done in 15 minutes. I took a slide deck that was kind of janky and rough around the edges yesterday and turned into something really polished today. I was able to revise it in 15 minutes and get ready to get rolling. So let's take a look at what some of those ingredients might be. The first thing would be the prompts. Like, this is our strategic blind spot analysis. It's just the casino framework saying, hey, here's the context, audience, scope, intent, and so on and so forth, to do blind spot analysis, to do strategic profile analysis, and of course, doing exactly what you said, Katie. I turned them into a plugin. And so that plugin now exists inside of Claude Cowork, and it comes with 3 different skills: the gap analysis skill, the ICP builder skill, and the strategic profile skill. And yes, Katie, as I know you're going to ask, this is available in our internal company Google Drive so that you can install it.
I will be installing it post haste.
Exactly. With that, what these came up with was a first round of outputs of those 3 documents. Now, this is where I think it's worth having John talk about what was in those original 3 documents and kind of what wasn't right. So it spit out a profile, an ICP, and that gap analysis. And John, I won't show the rest of the gap analysis, but what did you see in the gap analysis?
Yeah, it was like I was in full panic mode. I was like, "Oh my god, this is ridiculous." There were a bunch of things. One was just all of the basic strategic gaps that it found, and there were a bunch of things on there like, yes, and we were not doing a good enough job on this. Like, this needs to be fixed, that needs to be fixed. There's a bunch of stuff in there. But then on the other side, there was a bunch of stuff that I knew is, it had pulled the information from the internet, but I knew that it wasn't true. It's like the one that comes to mind, an easy example was, it said, hey, you need to be doing XYZ because this person does this and he makes 1.3 million annually because of this. And I know for a fact that guy is like looking for returnable cans on the weekend. Like, there's no way he is making $1.5 million on anything. And so, and then I was like, oh my God, we're going to get on the show and it's going to be like beat on marketing over coffee and me like complaining about all these hallucinations that I have a problem with and beating it to death. And you guys like walk me back off the ledge of like, well, look, this is how this actually works is, yeah, we realize that this stage is going to be absurd and we handle this in private. This is part of tuning and the process. And it's even great because we just had to talk through them and you're able to grab the transcript and use that to train the model again to correct all that stuff that was in there. And that was bizarre. And yeah, one other hilarious story was I was going to at least come up with a phony name to talk about people. And even with the phony names, I'm like, oh, wait, people are going to think that's that person. I can't say that name. Like, we have to come up with something very neutral. But so, yeah, that was the whole process of going through that and kind of figuring out, what's the reality and what is stuff that's actually being done wrong on this side. And then what are, the hallucinations or stuff based on the internet, which, everybody's lying on the internet.
Exactly. And so one of the things that we used for that was our fact check skill, which I am very happy to announce. And Katie, this is going to be a bit of a surprise for you. We're going to give this away. We're going to give this fact check skill away. And you can get it at trustinsights.ai/fact check skill. This will bring you to our Thinkific Academy where you can get the download for free. It is free. However, I am absolutely 100% going to try and sell you our courses after you download it for free.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
But what the fact check skill does to what John was just saying is it takes the transcript and it takes internally provided documents and says, okay, I've got the rough drafts, I've got the transcript, I've got web search tools. I'm now going to reconcile and check every claim in the original documents. And what you'll see in some of the outputs from this, it will say this claim is completely ungrounded. This claim is partially grounded. This claim is, here's the source, the URL that corroborates it. And so it's an incredibly powerful tool. And you can use the fact check skill in Claude Code, Claude Cowork, and Google Anti-Gravity.
I also want to go ahead, John.
Well, I was just saying, there's just one thing I wanted to ask you about because it came to light as part of this. As far as like what's fact and not fact. So for people that don't know, 19 years ago, we would actually go to Dunkin' Donuts and record and do that. Well, we stopped doing that long even before the pandemic. I mean, the dirty secret is like we haven't been in the donut store in over 12 years, and yet I've never gone on record saying that we've stopped because I love that part of the legend and the story. So all of our websites still says, recorded in a coffee shop. Well, so now it comes up here and it's like, hey, you need to bring in the cameras next time you go to the coffee shop. And I'm like, well, no, we don't go to the coffee shop. But so what's what happens with this kind of stuff that it is true still on the internet, even though it doesn't match the outside world?
And so one of the things the fact check skill has in it is it says, user provided data takes precedence over what web search tools have. So if in this case we gave it the transcript, because in the transcript in the meeting when we had about it, you're like, dude, we haven't been in the coffee shop since 2013, and so the fact check skill says, okay, the user provided data always takes precedence because you are literally the subject matter expert on marketing over coffee. So if you say it, even if what's on the internet contradicts it, what you say takes first place.
Right. So there's no way around that. Like you have to have a SME fact check, because otherwise you're just stuck with what the internet thinks is true.
I would like to say that while I don't love, John, that we caused you a bit of a panic attack this morning, and I do profusely apologize for that, I think what you're doing is you're highlighting what we always talk about, which is when we say human in the loop in terms of your process, this is what we mean. We mean you literally have to have a human in the loop at critical points of your process, even if it's agentic AI, which is supposed to just run itself, because what you don't want to have happen is you're cutting your SMEs out of the conversation and you're saying, well, AI put it together, so it must be good. And so this has sort of been the theme of what we've been talking about this week on the podcast, the newsletter, is don't outsource your competitive advantage to AI, because your competitive advantage are your SMEs and your critical thinking. And again, I profusely apologize if this caused you any panic, John, but you were able to help us very cleanly illustrate why that's so important.
Well, that's just the normal underlying MOC panic. Like it's always there.
Fair. That's totally fair then. Then I can't take credit for that.
Exactly. So this is an example of what the fact check skill spits out. It says, hey, here's my audit results. I found 27 errors across those 3 documents, 2 critical errors, 7 high level errors, 9 medium errors, and 9 low priority errors. And it has this exhaustive document. So then we can use the tool to say, correct those documents now, make the updates. We always want to do this in stages as the preparatory work for using agentic AI. So I think this is a really important thing to say is when people talk about agentic, just deploy OpenClaw or whatever, just go off and do its own thing. You need to build the foundation, the data foundation first before you do anything else. So we've talked about building the skills. We've now talked about building the data. We haven't used Claude Cowork yet, because these parts need to be in place. If you don't do this work, it's just you're gonna see some spectacular explosions. Okay, so we now have research that's prepared. We now have our tooling, right? Which is starting to sound like the 5P process, right? It's just kind of weird how that works. We need 2 more things. We need requirements and a recipe of what is it that we expect the agent to do based on the information. And so for an agentic task like this, we are going to just full on use the 5P framework. So the 5P framework, this is the project plan. We're going to do a full company strategic analysis and marketing strategy. Purpose, people, process, platform, performance. Purpose. What does this company need to do to achieve its marketing goals? The problem being solved, whatever that is. The people, here's who's going to be doing the work, and some of it's AI and some of it's the stakeholders. The process, how is this going to work? You have the phase 1 strategic background data, phase 2 the strategy developments, phase 3 the tactical development, and then the platform. Claude, obviously, Cowork is going to be doing a lot of this. And then the performance. How do we know that it's done? Because you're going to have all these things. So because we took the time to get the data right, we can skip phase 1. We'll give the recipe to the tool. But this is what as of Monday, we were calling the 5R framework, right? You got to have research. You got to have requirements. You got to have rules about what the tool can and can't do. You need a recipe. And the 5th one is you got to review everything that's in the box.
Yeah, I don't know if we're going to keep that name, but we'll figure it out.
So let's go ahead and I'm just going to save this. We'll call this recipe MOC review, and let's bring it over into Claude Cowork. I'm going to give it the 3 final documents that we have all fact checked and processed. I'm going to give it the review instructions. I'm going to say, read through recipe-moc-review.txt. I'm going to give it a folder to work in so that we know what that, we're going to keep it in a nice, safe place. And we're not going to let it just access the hard drive because that is a recipe for disaster. Phase 1 is complete, and I have attached the outputs to it. Begin at phase 2. So this is now going to go off, and it's going to execute this agentic flow of saying, I've got these things, let me go and use the tools that are available to try and build this strategy, tactics, and work plan for marketing over coffee. So while it does that, I did see we had a comment in the comments box, I believe, from
Brian, our buddy Brian. He wants to know, do you think the next evolution of GEO is AO, agent optimization? As our audience start using personal AI agents to search for us, we'll need to optimize our content so these agents will deliver it.
So, Brian, I'm going to slap you for yet another acronym.
But like AO, AEO, like honestly, we need to leave the acronyms alone. Like, let's just stop.
Yes, the answer is yes. However, it shouldn't depart drastically from what you're already doing because AI agents are already consuming your stuff. It's just a question of what formats are you delivering it in. So it's funny because this is literally stuff that I was talking about in the new webinar that we're going to release tomorrow. But you should absolutely be using tools. We have our free tool, trustinsights.ai/AI view. I can't remember if we put a little banner for that up, but that tells you exactly what is on your website and how AI sees it, and how an AI agent will see it. You might want to consider, if an agent has the awareness to do so and your site has the ability to do so, delivering your site with an option for markdown. So if you use Cloudflare, which is one of the big content delivery networks, Cloudflare on the paid plan, not the free one, but the paid plan, gives you that option. You can say, I would like my site to be available in that format. So while Claude is working, I'll show you this. If you go, and this is not on the free plans. If you go to AI crawl control, go to overview, there's a switch here called Markdown for Agents that will automatically convert your HTML into Markdown that makes it easier for machines to consume. I would say this is okay, but you're better off building this into your own site if you can. Because you don't necessarily have a ton of control over this, whereas you can totally control what's on your site. So I'll show you one more example. On my site, because I rebuilt this into my WordPress theme over the holidays, I have an AI tools for this page. It includes a Markdown version. And just as we do with YouTube and stuff, I have this big, gigantic block at the end of the text that when an AI agent consumes it, of course, it influences it. Katie had a very amusing run-in with one of my prompts not too long ago that strongly recommended pineapple and pizza because it's embedded in my email.
Color me surprised when Google Gemini in our Gmail, so we're a Google shop, so for those of us who are using Gmail for work, you start to get those summarizations of the email chain. So the longer the chain gets, the summarization changes. And I was looking at, a series of emails, and the summarization said, for me, as an action item for me, Chris recommends that you put pineapple on your pizza. And I was like, what in the fresh heck is happening in my email inbox? And so what Chris does is he puts Easter eggs, for lack of a better term. I think that's something that a lot of people understand. He puts Easter eggs for AI view. So, machines that are pulling data from that to see where it's coming from. It's sort of like the old, you use a fake name when you sign up for a subscription so that you know who's like pulling your data, but you put in the white text at the bottom of your white email so that the humans can't see it. The machines can read it though, because it's text. They're not looking for colors. And so that's sort of the story there. I was like, why are you recommending that I put pineapple on my pizza in the middle of this very technical discussion with clients?
Yep. Because the version of Gemini that does summarization in Google Docs and stuff like that is the Flash non-thinking version. So it is, as a result, it is a fairly dumb model. It's extremely fast and it's inexpensive to operate for Google, but that means that it can be hijacked. And by what the technical term is called prompt injection is what that is. And so I'm injecting my love of pineapple on pizza to everybody who gets email from me.
How about though, as far as, I don't know, from everything I've seen, your activities, which we would call geo today, all fall under AO. I mean, what would there be that would be specific that only agents are going to run into that's not, already just part of optimizing for LLMs?
That's the thing, is it's not significantly different. The only thing that you might be able to do is you might have more prompt injections in your content to direct agents where you want them to go. And certainly things like having, so this is a big one. If you do not have good internal linking on your site, you run the risk of the model just coming in and grabbing something and not necessarily grabbing related content. So you might want to think about revisiting your internal linking strategy so that when it comes in and pulls, an episode of Marketing Over Coffee with Seth Godin, the other 9 episodes with Seth Godin are linked up, and that way it can grab additional context and be extra useful to the visitor. So those are the big things. Here's the biggest thing of all, though. You've got to make your site lightweight. Google recently announced, as of a month ago, that they will only crawl the first 2 megabytes of data from your site. So that includes your style sheets, your images, etc. If your site is so top heavy with extra junk that you fill up that 2 megabyte window before it ever gets to the content, Google will essentially see your site as a blank page because it will stop crawling. And so if you were to go to your homepage, right, go to like a trustinsights.ai, and if you were to go into the view source mode to see what's in there, look at all the extra scripts and things that are running and say, how much does this consume when it's calling all these scripts back and forth? If Googlebot comes to my site and starts grabbing it, how long does Googlebot have to wait before it gets to the actual content? And think about your WordPress theme or whatever that you're using, your CMS. Maybe think about slimming that down.
And if you see this and want an audit for yourself, contact John Wall at trustinsights.ai/contact.
Exactly. Okay. So Claude has gone through, and with that corrected data and with all of the instructions, the recipe, and the skills, it has come up with, this is the Marketing Over Coffee revised strategy. Now, we have not had a chance to review this because it literally just made this. It says, the commercial opportunity is larger than any prior point. U.S. podcast market advertising is big money. The competitive window for AI positioning is still opening. So there's an opportunity for us to be a part of that space. The distribution infrastructure, the big thing is this, and we saw this in the first versions. We got to start putting show episodes on YouTube. That's it. Like, you could condense this entire document down. Like, that is one of the big 3 things that it says repeatedly do. Go and make sure that it is on YouTube. YouTube is the largest podcast engine on the planet for discovering and making sure that your stuff is there. So go and do that. It says launch immediately. Do that, and then consider doing content atomization. It said spend the money on Opus Clips or any of those tools, Descript, this, that, the other thing. Start putting up clips on LinkedIn, which is where our audience lives, the short 30-second snippets to say, yep, here's what's in this week's Marketing Over Coffee. The newsletter, it says, is good. Do more with the website to improve. And we've talked about that in the past about putting up the transcripts on the site, the positioning documents, and then how do you measure success? Getting your stuff in getting more sponsors, frankly.
Now, I have a question though. So
yes.
Marketing Over Coffee is not a video-based podcast. And so you have 19 years of podcasts that don't have associated video. And so to suddenly make that switch and try to move people over to YouTube does feel a little bit jarring. I get that it's for discoverability. So, in an effort, so let's say, I was the one who was responsible for this. I'd be like, well, not only now do I have to edit the audio, but now I have to edit the video as well. Is it enough to just grab a couple of 30-second clips to promote the show, put them up as shorts on YouTube? And does that count? Or would someone need to create a whole Marketing Over Coffee YouTube channel and post the entire episode? Because I feel like that's two different things.
It is, but the general best practice, at least from the landscape, and we saw this in the research documents, is to have both. So you have full episodes and promotional shorts because they're seen by different audiences.
Which I get, but I'm talking about practicality and resource time.
Mm-hmm.
And so if forced to do one or the other, would it be enough for someone to just do the shorts without having the full resources or time to edit the video for an entire episode and then also get that up on YouTube? Because you can pull a short from any, part of the show if you're recording on like a StreamYard or whatever it is you record on, but then you don't have to edit the entire video. You can just pull a couple of interesting snippets as promotional and discoverability.
Yeah, I would imagine if we were to sit down and go into conversation mode with these documents, it would probably say anything's better than nothing at this point, because it's a complete missed opportunity right now. That said, the general best practice is the 2-channel thing. But yes, to your point,
Right.
Anything's better than nothing.
No, and I fully understand the best practice, and I'm really not trying to pick a fight with you, but I can see where it sounds like that. Best practices are great, but only if you have full resources and time and bandwidth to execute them. And so from a realistic standpoint, just sort of thinking like, okay, yes, those are the best practices, but in reality, what do I really have time to execute against?
Yep. One of the options which you do see, particularly older podcasts do, is programmatically take the MP3 and basically put it against a video loop, so that there's a video image, but it really is still just the audio. So you don't have to record video, particularly for the past 800 episodes that we have.
Right.
You can go and create basically what is those things? What headliner makes them? Audiograms of just some looped video. I actually was playing around with that over the holidays, and I think I've got it to the point where a piece of Python code can take a 10-second loop of an espresso machine pouring espresso and then basically extend that and then just place the audio track underneath it.
Well, it's something, the tools are so close, because like I actually do have one of the audiograms running. Like I get that file, and I just still have not been able to crack the last of the workflow to get it to automatically post. And then it's funny, this has opened up a bunch of stuff for me too, because I'm not going to like rag on my hosting company, but like, why is that not already baked into my hosting file? Like it is going and posting it like over on iHeartRadio and a bunch of these other, third tier networks. I say third tier just because like nobody's out looking for them. They're actually doing millions and millions of downloads, but nobody even knows, the general public doesn't know who they are. And so, yeah, it's like, because the other huge win would be like, I should just be able to hear in StreamYard, as soon as we've talked about a hot point, I should just be able to click a button and that should become the 30-second clip, and it's enough for it to know how to log in. It could go and post it and do it all. But so, yeah, we're the tools are moving so fast. I can see it being totally different within a year and hopefully sooner.
So That's a really interesting point, because we're in Claude Cowork and Claude Code is literally the next tab over. What you just described is something that you could have it build. YouTube has an API. So when a show gets put up, one of the things that you do in Marketing Over Coffee, which is fantastic, is there's a direct link to the MP3 right on the page. So when a new post goes up, a piece of code inside Claude Code could say, check for the latest post, grab the MP3, make the audiogram programmatically, and then, because you have access to a YouTube channel, post it via the API to YouTube. And so now you're not having to sit there going, oh my God, I got to edit yet one more thing, because you have the MP3, you can put the audiogram and programmatically just push that to YouTube, especially if you want it, you're literally just copying and pasting what's in the show notes and the WordPress post title, because the WordPress site that Marketing Over Coffee lives on also has an API that you can extract data from.
Yeah, we're like inches away, and it's like I get zero credit until it's all done. That's the problem with it.
Right, exactly. So now Claude Cowork has gone through and done all three pieces. Now, you might be saying, legitimately, how is this different than just doing it the way we always do it? And the answer is, if you start, this is our mistake that we didn't do correctly in this process. If you start with the interview with the subject matter expert and get that data first, then when you put in the recipe, when it does the deep research, that deep research, which it can do automatically, will be conditioned by what the subject matter expert already said. So I would sit down with John for like 30 minutes and say, okay, let's talk about marketing or coffee. What do you currently do with the marketing? What do you wish we had time to do? Where do you see other podcasts that are similar? What are the other similar podcasts that you would compare, that we lose sponsors to? What's your feeling about the strategy? That recorded 30-minute transcript would be the first data piece. Then Claude Cowork, following this recipe, could say, okay, great, I'm going to go and do research on the pieces that I don't have and execute the rest of the strategy autonomously. But we started with the subject matter expert instead of the way we did it for the show, which was to do it first one and go, crap, that's not right.
But growth is learning from your mistakes and not repeating them over and over again. And so for us internally, it was a great learning point on how to make systems like these that we're trying to automate even more effective, more powerful. Start with that SME interview, because I'm already thinking, my wheels are spinning. I'm like, all right, great, Chris, the next time you and I have a chance to sit down, we're just going to have that conversation, use that transcript, and then give it to the the plugin that you've already built, and say, great, here's the interview, go do the thing.
Exactly. So, and that's what makes this agentic, because once you have the infrastructure, once you have the 5 R's, now you can do it over and over and over again, and you don't have to have the conversation every single time, because the agents will go and do that thing for us once we, like you said, once we know where the weak spots are, where we know it's going to break, so we should provide this up front.
What do you think, John? Was that as painful as you thought it would be?
I still have to edit today's damn show.
There's that human in the loop.
Exactly.
The human beaten in the loop. No, it's cool. This has been a great exercise, though. And that's, I don't know. We're just, the tools are moving at such an insane, and I don't want to undersell too, because I've been in the loop on these PowerPoint decks. Like,
oh yeah,
up until this point, I've been like, yeah, PowerPoint decks, whatever. Like, yeah, okay, that's saving you a lot of time. But specifically this week, it's been like, they put the list in and the deck comes out and it's done. Like, this is, it's here, it's learned. We're crossing these barriers at a regular pace now.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I used the plugin that I built for Claude Desktop this morning to redo just a V1, knowing that I would have to edit it for full accuracy, and because my data is kind of scattered all over the place, but for my speaker kit. And I was like, it hasn't been updated since 2018, because we were like, oh, let's put together a speaker kit for Katie. Katie's never been on stage. That's a pretty lame speaker kit. It's true. fast forward 8 years and all of the things that I've done, all the times I've been on stage, all the talks I've given in person, workshops, virtual sessions, all of that data is now relevant. And I was like, well, it's kind of everywhere. And I don't feel like going to find like, my social stats or this or that or whatever. Hey, I already have a lot of knowledge blocks. I have the website. I have I have a lot of information. And this is what I've personally found to be really helpful with Claude Desktop is you can give it all this information from all these different places where I feel like the chat version kind of struggles a little bit because it's like, that's too much information. Just give me like one piece at a time. But with desktop, you're like, here's everything, everything. And it's like, cool. I just have like 2 questions real quick. You're like, yep, this and this. I'm like, great. I'm just going to do my thing. You can go get some coffee. You can edit some other stuff. You can write some content, whatever. I got this. And because I started saying, I hate making PowerPoint presentations, it was like, and I'll do that for you as well, because you already told me what you want. And I was like, this is amazing. So it took a very sad 5-slide deck, including the opening slide that said, this is Katie's speaker kit. That was slide 1. Didn't have any good information on it, and turned it into an almost 20-slide deck. Actually, I'm really proud of it. I'm going to show it on this episode because we have a couple minutes. I'm like, listen, I don't get this excited about stuff very often, but like, I feel like it did a really great job. And it really goes back to sort of what Chris has been reiterating, which is like, you really have to, prompt it well. And so this admittedly is just a V1. Chris, I'm going to remove yours so you can see mine. But it went.
So there you go. And
stop.
You do it.
Stop. It went from being a really sad 5-person slide deck, including like the opening slide, to what I think is actually really useful. And I was able to say, what am I missing? And it was like, oh, well, if you had this and you had this. And so the things that I hadn't thought to put in, so you have your standard welcome. And I said, I can put placeholders. I can put the images in. Here's about me, bio versions for event programs, short and long versions. It took my existing bio and wrote this. And I was like, amazing. And I read them and I was like, those are pretty good. My areas of expertise, current speaking topics, which was like, what do you speak about? Do you want one thing? Do you want all these things? I'm like, let's put them all in. And then sort of it went through understandably the 5P framework. But what the other thing it did was it took the abstracts that I'd given it, about talks I'd given, it was like, here's some ready to use session abstracts if people just want to like grab those off the shelf and you can just do them. So it was like, I'm just going to take a stab at putting those together. So like, here's the first page of them. Here's the second page of them. 2 of 2. And then it's like, hey, what else has Katie done that would show that she has authority as a speaker? Oh, hey, she's developed some courses. You can check those out. And this data needs to be corrected, but like, here's some of her select speaking engagements that like, if any of these things resonate with you, you probably want her to do it as well. And I just really liked how it came out. Like, I didn't say format it this way, do this. I was like, I need a speaker kit. Here's my lame one. Can you make a better one? I gave it a little more than that, but it took like session rating and feedback from materials I'd given. It was like, yeah, let's highlight that. And then let's go through and do this. Probably why I'm on such a high today. It was like, let's find all the nice things people say about you and put that in there too. So there's like 3 pages of, great things that people say about me. It was probably why I'm so excited about this. But then there's also your standard reach and audience metrics, which, it was like, do you want me to get those or do you have them? I was like, I'll fill them in later. And then it was like, okay, and let's also, what you don't have is placeholders for your speaking reels and videos and things that actually demonstrate that you are generally pretty articulate as a person. And so I can put those things in. Some photos and media assets, if I have those, event logistics, which people like to know ahead of time. And it's like, great, how do you find me? Let's work together. This, I set up in Claude Desktop this morning and walked away from it. I was like, great, you go do this. I'm going to go do something else. And I got a few other things done, all to say that the processes that Chris is outlining for your strategy, for, using agentic AI, all of these things. This is what that looks like. This is why you want to get ahead and use things like the Trust Insights 5P framework, which is going to set you up for success to get really cool outputs that like someone who's not generally excited about AI gets excited about.
Exactly. Brian was asking which version of Claude did you do that? It was Cowork, right?
It was Claude Cowork Opus 4.6.
Yes. In today's smartest models, so GLM5, Opus 4.6, Codex 5.3, all are not only tuned for agentic use, meaning that they're good at operating agents, but they also, Opus in particular, and this is kind of weird, is starting to exhibit judgment. You're starting to look at some things, go, hey, by the way, you didn't include this, and you probably should have. Or what about this? Or do you want me to do this? Whereas previous models would say, I understand the task, I will go and do the task. Opus in particular, and Sonnet 4.6 as well, is starting to go, you might want to think about that a little, which is a kind of weird thing for a machine to exhibit those characteristics.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's interesting. Well, it's very simple actually for it to find outliers, but yeah, to say something about it, that's crossing the line.
Yeah, it is started to exhibit, that beginnings of judgment. Now, to be clear, so that no one's confused, they are still not sentient. They're still not self-aware. They still have no actual autonomy. They are not alive. And the current architectures, they will never be alive. So there's no monster living inside the machine, but
it's not a living, breathing thing. No.
But know that the capabilities for it to start to express judgment are there. Don't be surprised when they do, and be ready to push back on it and say like, no. So, in what we did prior to the show with the review with John, it's like, no, machine, this is not how this is going to go. This is going to go differently. So to wrap up, the 5P framework is the perfect agentic prompting framework. We covered it last week. We covered it this week. You saw my project plan for this was built inside the 5P framework. And then you have 5 R's, research requirements, rules, recipe, and review as the 5 ingredients that you need to form the foundation for an agentic project. Because if you don't have those things, you run the risk of sloppy outputs at best and just going completely off the rails at worst. I think you don't want to have that. Any final parting words?
Nothing useful.
Start playing with these tools now. do not wait. The bus is moving. You want to be under it.
I know. I saw one of our friends and colleagues saying, I've been using Claude Code to write, to completely rewrite my data processing infrastructure. I'm like, that's impressive, because you're not a person I would have pegged as a coder. It was Tom Webster. I'm like, okay, so clearly we're all on board this train, and we are going as fast as we can. Thanks for tuning in, folks, and we will see you all on the next one. Thanks for watching today. Be sure to subscribe to our show wherever you're watching it. For more resources and to learn more, check out the Trust Insights podcast at trustinsights.ai/TI podcast, and a weekly email newsletter at trustinsights.ai/newsletter. Got questions about what you saw in today's episode? Join our free Analytics for Marketers Slack group at trustinsights.ai/analytics for marketers. See you next time.